But let's start out this week 3 with Daniel Jones and the Giants visiting the San Francisco 49ers. The Giants have kind of had a weird start to their season, but they are visiting San Francisco. Spread right now, it's kind of fluctuated a little bit, but -10 is where we're sitting at with this spread. Let me see. Where are we at? We're at 10.5 right now currently on FanDuel. Over-under set at 44. I do have a best bet in this matchup. It is not on a side, but it is on the over-under. And I took an over-under last week for Thursday Night Football, and it looked good. About halfway through the game, I was like feeling great about it. And then all of a sudden the floodgates opened up, and I ended up falling a little short on my over. Or my under bet.
Don't take the under with Kirky Cousins in prime time,
Kirk
Chris.
Cousins, by the way, he's crushing this year.
Oh, Sky, what happened to the money line?
Did I plus 44.5? That's
normal.
Yeah, that's a normal. That's a normal. Plus 445, I think. Take out the period. I don't know.
You get plus 44.5 for every dollar you bet. That's how that works. That's how that. That's how that works. Okay. But the over/under is where I have this game set. So I have this one. I got it actually at 45 earlier on in the week, and I locked that in. I have the FanDuel receipt to prove that. But now it's at 44.
You, Chris. I'm sorry for questioning you so hard last week.
No. And I adjusted it. We're even. We're tied now. We're tied up. It made sense.
Both not great, but we'll bounce back.
We'll get there. But I think the 49ers are still one of the better teams in the NFL. They're especially good on the defensive side of the ball. I expect the 49ers to keep this one very conservative, especially, the fact that, they're going to run the ball a little bit more against the Giants defense and operate a little more conservative game plan on a short week. Brandon Ayuk is still questionable. We'll talk about him in the fantasy focus here coming up, but Saquon Barkley is where I feel like this game kind of matters. And without Saquon, who is literally the engine of everything that the Giants try to do, I think they're going to struggle to score a little bit against a top defense on a short week, back-to-back on the road. 45 is kind of gets through some key numbers there, especially in the over-unders. And I just think that this is going to be maybe a little bit low-scoring game, especially on the Giants side. And I don't know if the 49ers especially are going to, go crazy just airing it out on a Thursday night, especially when they have a decent lead and they're holding the Giants to a low total. So this one, I think, is going to go under, and I really like this number here, especially at 44. I think this game should be around 42, 41 and a half, 42, but I could see, still getting this at 44 and feeling good about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously the short week on Thursday, you have a Giants team that for the first 6 quarters of the season looked like the worst team in football, with a blowout on Sunday night against Dallas and then being down what were they down? Like 24-0 or whatever it was, to what everyone feels like should be the worst team in football. And then the Giants, of course, came back because I think there was a mandate at halftime in the Arizona locker room by ownership to blow that game or something. I don't know. You don't have Saquon.
And Josh Dobbs.
I don't know. You don't have Saquon. You don't have Andrew Thomas. Their left tackle is going to be out for this game. That seems problematic against obviously a defense that can get after the quarterback. That's actually the best facet of the defense for the 49ers. The offense for the 49ers through 2 weeks has been clicking. The run game, pass game, both have been really, really good. If you look at EPA per play, they're the best offense in football through 2 weeks. So it's hard not to like the Niners to cover this. 10's a big number, especially on a short week. I usually don't like betting these, but I would, and it's not one of my bets of the week in this, but I lean San Fran as well. You can't bet the Giants right now. Like, they've looked awful through 2 weeks. Short week. They are staying on the West Coast. They didn't go back after playing Arizona, so they don't have the travel that maybe you'd think they'd have. But they don't also have their best players, so that seems concerning.
It takes a toll. Like on a couple games on the road, I mean, just flying back and forth, being on the road, living out of a suitcase, like getting out of your routines. Like it makes a difference when you're on a back-to-back road trip for some of these players. So I think so. There's a model that there is put out there that has this game around 11.1 is the spread, so a little over that 10, which gives you the idea of, all right, you can easily take that number and be like, all right, well, if the number's at 10, I feel good about the Niners at least winning by 10 or more, and feeling okay as a lean. Swift or Madison, says Abolic. Welcome in, Abolic. First time chatter. I think Swift.
Especially the Vikings just traded for Cam Akers, so that's going to cut into his time. All right.
Let's go.
Welcome, Abolic. Who's your team and where are you from? Like to get to know you.
We're talking, I mean, I still think it's Swift, but I don't think Akers is going to make an impact this week.
Not off the bat.
To impact Madison for this week. I do like, I mean, you like Madison in the sense that he's involved in the highest, I think, total of the week with the Minnesota LA Chargers game at 54. So you always like to see that. But I mean, obviously he hasn't really produced. He had a breakout game from Swift. I'd say if Gainwell isn't playing again, I'd go Swift. If Gainwell's playing, I still think he's going to get a decent amount of carries, and then I might think about Madison, just because I think he's going to be the lead back in a high-scoring game. So
I think it's a bounce-back week potentially for Madison, but at the same time, Minnesota hasn't proven they can run the ball in weeks 1 or 2. Like, they're one of the worst running teams in the NFL at this moment.
EPA per play, I think they're the second worst rushing team in football.
So just as a whole for the running game, it doesn't matter. Not to mention Cam Akers, who's going to need to get some time to get in with that offense and feel good about it. Same thing with, we had another change in running backs in another team as well. But
by the way, I don't think Cam Akers is going to help at all. I think it's going to be the same story. I just don't think they're going to be a good running team this year, and they're going to have to rely on throwing the ball a lot in Minnesota.
He'll get carries, Milwaukee's, but at the same time, he's not gonna initially come right in 2 or 3 days before the week 3 lineup and just snatch out all the carries. I mean, there's gonna be. I think Madison knows the playbook well enough. He's been with this team all through the offseason, all through the preseason, all through the first couple weeks, and he's probably going to get a majority of it. So, I mean, if you're a Cam Akers carrier on fantasy, if you own him, it's not a week you start him by any means. But anyways, Giants 49ers coming up, though. Scotty, any other thoughts on this one? I think, you lean on the 49ers. I lean on the under. But
you bet on the under.
Yeah. I am on the under in this one. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, Cuban had an interesting question. Which team has the better QB?
Ooh. Well, like from a very isolated, like from the QB talent standpoint, because if it's
just, if you were playing a game tomorrow and you had to take one of those two quarterbacks to be your quarterback, who are you taking?
Regardless of the people around him. Like,
I mean,
if they both had the same team,
I get that. Yeah, it's the same team.
If they both had the same team to work with, I might lean Jones. Is it weird to think that Jones is a big physical quarterback that can make things happen? He just hasn't had the pieces around him.
I mean, he can do more outside the pocket, and he's underrated as a runner of the football.
Yeah.
So he provides more there, more experience.
I think I might have to lean Jones.
I would go Jones too. I would go Jones. Obviously, Purdy's played better this year, but Purdy's in a much better situation.
Exactly. That's the hard, line to draw there with those two. So, Okay.
Purdy's in the best situation in the league as far as a quarterback goes. I mean, he's just surrounded by talent everywhere.
Well, we've talked about it. Like you put Purdy on like the you put him on any other roster, yeah. And does he have the same success? Probably not.
No,
Probably not.
You have an elite offensive coach, elite offensive line,
let's be nice.
two great
Let's
wide
be
receivers,
nice.
a great tight end, and the best.
Say
running
something
back in
nice
football.
about Brock
Like,
Purdy.
Brock Purdy has overachieved for Mr. Irrelevant, and
Brock Purdy's done everything asked of him.
yeah,
Minus stay healthy in the playoffs last year. But Brock Purdy, that's something.
That's not exactly his fault.
No, but he's done everything asked of him. He hasn't. He's performed well with what they ask him to do, which is just to be a game manager. Basically, that's what he is.
Naga.
He's an Alex Smith type. He just is.
Naga asked, "What do you think Breida will do in this game?" I think Breida will have a decent game. The problem is, I preface that with they're going up against San Francisco 49ers defense, so he's going to get the carries. Will he get a good fantasy output? I wouldn't bank on it, but
I would not, unless you're desperate at running back. I'm not.
I wouldn't bank on him having a big day. So I would throw him probably in your flex at best. If you
I'm hoping you have better options.
Correct. You don't want to start a lot of running backs against this San Francisco D.
And certainly not Matt Breida.
True.
Former Niner.
Yeah.
Niners have so many running backs.
We have the Eagles and the Bucks. Eagles traveling to Tampa. Line here -4.5. When we took this at the time, it was a total of 45.5. And I believe we're still in that range, if I'm not mistaken. So this game currently sits, let's see, -4.5 and over under set at 46. By the way, guys, if you have any questions along the betting lines here, let us know how we can answer your questions and we can give you some insights on how those work. Well, I know we've done that a few times and we try to educate you guys on how to bet. If you don't, there's no stupid questions, throw them in the chat, but let us know what your questions are and we can get to that. But Eagles coming in here, taking on Baker Mayfield. What do you got on this one, Scotty?
Chris, Baker Mayfield pisses me off. Do you remember prior to last year, he gets, he moves on from Cleveland, gets moved to Carolina, and all offseason, I was kind of like, Carolina's kind of a sleeper team. I think Baker's going to be a decent quarterback for him. I don't think he's as bad as people care to make him out to be. And then obviously it was a disaster, a dumpster fire. He wasn't on the team even the whole season before moving on to the Rams. So didn't go well. He comes to the Bucks. Chris, he's played better than the guy they signed out to a fully guaranteed deal out in Cleveland, Chris. Cleveland right now probably wishes they had Baker Mayfield.
I think in the Discord, did you say something like you thought the Russ deal was bad? This one, the Cleveland,
we give a hard time to Russ, but that Deshaun Watson deal might.
Yeah, at least the Broncos have been out for the contract in a couple of years.
It's guaranteed.
And there's no way for the Browns to.
Yeah,
the Browns cannot get out of that deal. Like if they trade him away, they'd have to give picks away, and they would still lose cap.
And he sucks. So, obviously the Bucks. Surprising start at 2-0. A lot of people had this as a team that would compete for the number 1 overall pick, and Baker says not so fast. So I was a year off apparently on all this, and it's still early. But the Eagles, what people I don't think have caught on to is the Eagles are 2-0, but haven't looked like the Eagles of last year through 2 weeks. Not even close. Struggled. Kind of got fortunate in week 1 against the Patriots. Last week, we're kind of lucky with all the turnovers. And I know obviously they caused some of those turnovers, but, a fumble at the 1 yard line by Justin Jefferson. The turnover battle was 4-1, or that game last week against Minnesota could have been very different. So a Philadelphia team that hasn't quite got in sync against a Tampa team that's played well through 2 weeks at home, I actually got them at +5, not the 4.5 here.
Your best bet.
One of my bets of the week, Chris, and I'm terrified of this bet. but I got a feeling, and I think Keep Close said this is one of his underdogs of the week. I like the Bucks +5. I think this is a good spot for them, and I think they compete and keep this game close, if nothing else.
Yeah, from the lines that I've seen from the people I trust and from like a couple other sources, I see this as a little over 6 point spread. So, I feel I didn't touch this game just because I didn't want to be sitting in your shoes trying to sweat out a Bucks cover here. And so this was on my radar for a little bit and I just took it off. I'm like, I don't want to be cheering for the Bucks. Like, that's just not a game that I feel like I want to just be watching at any point this Sunday. But you're on the right side in this one, I think, Scotty. I think this one is if I had to pick. Now, the line has dropped from where it was. You got it at 5. It's -4.5 now. And I think Naga has a question. Does the spread mean Eagles win by a touchdown? It means that when the game is over and you see the final scores, you subtract 4.5 points from the Eagles, and if they are still winning, then they win. Or if if the Bucks are winning at that point, then the Bucks win the spread. So, that's kind of how you play that, Naga, just for like the spread purposes. But good question. Thanks for throwing that out there. If you have any other questions, let us know.
And to be clear, just so we're clear, that total number, that's total points by both teams. You can bet over that number, under that number. And money line is basically you're betting on who you think just wins the game, no spread at all, who's going to win the game outright. And those numbers, so to win $100, if you bet on Philadelphia, you have to bet 205 to profit 100. Whereas with Tampa's side, if you just bet 100, you're going to profit 170.
Correct.
On that. So obviously the favorite in Philadelphia, you don't get as good of odds on.
Baker just doesn't go away, though. He just he lingers around and he hangs around, hanging around.
I can't imagine Tampa's front office is thrilled to be 2-0 right now. Honestly, I wouldn't be if I were them, but here they are. You have Mike Evans, who's not happy in his final year. He might get dealt. It seems like they're almost featuring him. He had a monster game week 2.
Yeah. Exactly. And not only that, but you have 3 teams that in the worst division that we projected. Atlanta Falcons are 2-0, New Orleans Saints are 2-0, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 2-0. Go figure. Who knew?
Now, none of them have beat a great team, but
no,
they are 2-0.
They are 2-0. Do you have any idea how Vegas projects the total point scores on each game?
I mean, I don't know the exact system, but there's, I'm sure, a lot of data points at play there. And no, I don't know specifically exactly how they come up with those numbers.
The algorithm I'm not familiar with. I know the fact that they run based off of there's a lot of ways they can do simulations of things. Hey, Sir Loudly, 23. Welcome, Sir Loudly. Welcome. Who's your team and where you're from? We like to get to know you a little bit. And guys, by the way, if you guys are a fan of a certain team, let us know in the chat. We know a lot of you guys because you guys are pretty much regulars here. But we do a fan face-off every Sunday where we get the fans of whoever's playing that night, and we do a little fan face-off. So if you guys are interested in doing that, join our Discord. Can you throw the Discord link in the chat? And we will have you join us for a fan face-off. And Scotty and I will run it. And you guys will kind of hang out with us on the stream, talking about the game. Sir Loudly, Patriots. I am from Philly. Ooh, that's a interesting dynamic there. Interesting. Love it. What's that story like? How did you become a Patriots fan if you're from Philly? Because I feel like you're born in Philly, you're an Eagles fan. I love origin stories for fans, so let me know. All right. So on to the next one here. Falcons at Lions. Is Chairman still here? Did the power go out?
Probably.
We got the Atlanta Falcons visiting the Detroit Lions. Over under set at 46.5, and Detroit is favored in this one by 3.5. Not much. So if you take this into a neutral site, you're probably looking at a pick 'em, right? Like they're probably getting about 2 points for home field, maybe a point.
1.5. 1 to 1.5 favored Lions. Yeah.
So Detroit Lions here, Jared Goff, but you got the Atlanta Falcons, who again we were just talking about, 2-0, kind of have a weird early of the season, success. Scotty, we're not surprised because we think that they're going to be a playoff team, but like at the same time, I don't know. The Falcons are just a weird team that seem to, I don't know. They just, you want to believe in them, but then they let you down and you just can't really commit. But Bijan has been pretty exciting. We're going to be talking about him in our fantasy focus here coming up. So, Scotty, do you have any insights on this one? What you like in this particular matchup?
Initially, I feel like Atlanta plays close games. These teams kind of seem, Detroit might be slightly better, but Detroit's inconsistent and hasn't learned how to be that team that everyone thinks they can be just yet, in my opinion. Case in point, last week at home, after going on the road and beating KC, losing to Seattle at home last week. So my lean here was Atlanta. I can't bet Atlanta, Chris. You kind of mentioned this before. Every time in the last 4 years I've bet Atlanta, either side of things,
never
either
good.
on them or against them, I lose every time. So I can't do it anymore. Too much pain there. We're going to talk about Bijan Robinson probably a little later in fantasy, but dude, that dude's legit. I mean, we knew he was legit, but he's probably more legit at least than I even realized. The hype is everything it should be. Some of the cuts he makes, there's one specific highlight that I think people have probably seen over and over again from the Packer game this last weekend. That was just, he should have been dropped for a 3-yard loss and he turned it into 20 yards. He's a dude. On the other side, probably no David Montgomery. I don't know how big of a loss that is for Detroit, but nonetheless. And they lose who I kind of was probably their leader on defense, at least vocally and in the locker room. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson could be out all year, certainly out this week. A guy they just picked up in free agency, so unfortunate there. But I think this game will be entertaining and close. It's not one of my bets of the week because, like I said, I can't bet on Atlanta, but I would lean Atlanta plus 3.5 just because I think it'll be a close game. Give me the team with the points.
Atlanta plays a lot of close games, which is why you would there's a couple teams in this league that you probably think about. You're just like, man, they're always in something close. And that's the Falcons, the Vikings, the Chargers, the Titans, which Chargers and Titans already faced off literally last week, and it was a close game. But those are the teams that you just think to yourself, you're like, man, just take the points. And in this circumstance, I think that that's a completely valid point. If I had a lean on this one, it would be Falcons plus 3.5, knowing it's going to be close. But I think the line's right where it should be when it comes to the over-under and the spread. So Vegas has it right in this one. I'm leaving it alone, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be a pretty entertaining game at the end when it comes down to a field goal and you're just watching this one on Red Zone and you're just like, okay, yeah, this is pretty good. So I feel like
can Lions defend the run? Not last week against Kenneth Walker.
No. And is it me or do the Lions feel like they're dropping off a little bit? I feel like the hype going into the preseason, Lions are picked to win the whole division. And, obviously, they still have a lot of, players that we feel good about. But at the same time, I'm not seeing the same hype and I'm not feeling the same vibe on the Lions as I did preseason.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they beat Kansas City in week 1 and you're like, but even in that game, they played incredibly hard, but I don't know that they played that well, to be honest. I think a lot of that was Kansas City's mistakes that they forced on themselves. Kind of talked about that before. Not that Lions played poorly, but they didn't look like a team that was just like, oh my gosh. but they played incredibly hard and got the win and deserved the win. So, I mean, we're 2 weeks in, Chris. There's a lot of season left. Obviously, Jameson Williams comes back from suspension eventually here. What does he add as a dynamic deep threat to this offense? We'll see. But no, they're not clicking probably. But they went to overtime against Seattle last week. They're an overtime away from being 2-0 after 2 weeks at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
Ty, the new running back for the Lions is nasty. I mean, pick him up.
Gibbs.
Yeah. Oh, Jahmyr Gibbs. The problem is like they don't
trust him quite
they
yet.
hate him. They hate him for some
They
reason.
don't trust him quite yet.
It's like a Detroit and DeAndre Swift situation where it's like, yeah, you're electric and dynamic, but like we would like you to sit on the sideline instead.
All right. We have a story from Sir Loudly. In my house, almost everybody had different team while I was growing up. Dad liked Cowboys, brother liked Falcons. So around 2000, 2001, as I was getting more into football and started watching more. And what do you know? Drew Bledsoe, I'm sorry, gets injured and Tom Brady starts a dynasty. Okay. So it looks like everyone kind of had different affiliations.
You were winning ships and your family just hated you, despised you for it. Is that what you're saying? As they were, and I can't imagine what your household was like with your brother in that Super Bowl Falcons Patriots. Yikes.
Yeah. Isn't that weird though? Like my cousin's kids have two of my cousin's kids play football. One plays for like I think a team called the Bengals. They have like NFL affiliations. One plays for like the Bengals, one plays for I think another NFL team. Right? No, I don't know. So my cousin's a Broncos fan. His wife is a Raiders fan. His son is a Bengals fan because that's what he grew up playing for Pee Wee football. And his other son is a 49ers fan because he was playing for the 49ers Pee Wee football. And I'm like, they've all stuck to those affiliations. So that family, man, that's a battle right there.
Yeah. OMG, I still have videos of me jumping, crying, and yelling from Falcons and Pats.
That game was
Super Bowl. Did you see in week 1? Because now Matt Ryan's in the booth and he was commentating the game, and they were coming back from halftime, and I don't know if this was on purpose or not, and it didn't look like there was a very brief look from Matt Ryan, like what the F? Why'd you say this look? But I think they were doing Minnesota week 1 against who were they playing? I forget who
Minnesota playing.
Tampa. And they were kind of talking about how Minnesota should have been up, and the play-by-play guy was like, man, this really feels like at half Minnesota should be up 28-3. And Matt Ryan's just standing next to him like, he didn't comment on it, but he gave him a look like, dude,
why would you say
you
this?
could have picked any other score. You had to go 28-3.
I mean, you could have also picked 33. Could have also picked 33-0.
RELA.
Well, that was for Minnesota, or that was for Indy, right? Oh, yeah, he was with Indy. It's true.
Yeah.
I think the 28-3 hurts a lot more. Now, the guy the play-by-play had to know what he was doing. Kind of messed up, but I kind of like it. I like it. Chris, are you muted, or like we can't hear you?
Oh, sorry. It always the button's loose and it just like slides down. I don't know why it does that.
Those and commies.
Never
Josh
like
Allen versus Sam Howell.
Never like a loose button.
Never. Don't just. It's always.
What?
It's always a problem.
What's up?
The Bills play the Commanders in Washington. 6.5 point spread for Buffalo.
Thanks, Mac.
Bills and Commanders. Bills favored. I mean, so you're saying if you like the Bills in this one, you're saying they're going to win this one by a touchdown, which Commanders coming off a win against the Denver Broncos, not saying much in that aspect, but I think the Bills, after that week 1 debacle, came back and did what they needed to do. I had that as not one of my official best bets, but they came back and I had it as one of my other, contest best bets, as they were going to win that one by double digits. They blew out their opponent in week 2. Now it's on to week 3. Hey, Fuzzy World. Welcome in, Fuzzy.
World.
Fuzzy, who's your team and where you're from? Like to get to know you. We're getting a lot of good origin stories for people's teams. What's yours? Where are you from? Thank you for the follow. It means a lot. Thank you. Chris seems to have trouble with buttons. True. Yeah. True. But Commanders still don't strike me as a team that I believe in. Bills still on the upswing. I like their chances here. The Commanders. I don't think the Commanderers here. I don't.
It's hard to spell.
It's hard to. It's fine.
It's such a long. It's the longest name in all the NFL, Chris.
Maybe this should be their new football team name. Maybe they should just change it.
I'm gonna put football team from now on.
Just put football team.
Football team.
It's even longer.
The Commanders.
Well, but I won't misspell it.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
This is how you spell it in Spanish.
Commandres. Commandres en español.
Yeah.
Sí, es la verdad.
There's 5 different ways to spell like comrade.
Or we're going Russian and it's like comrade. This is the game that makes me think everything will be all right with the Bills until the locker room blows up in the second half of the season. Well, that if anyone's going to do that, it's going to be Stephon Diggs. But I still think that the Bills are the better team in this one. I think they win this game. I didn't bet this one personally as one of my best bets, but I do think that if I had any lean in this one, it would be Buffalo. I just don't believe in Sam Howell and what the Commanders do have some nice pieces, but I could also see the Commanders just showing out on defense and keeping this one close, which is why I'm just like backdoor cover. Maybe the Commanders keep this, get a last minute touchdown and keep it in within the 6.5. I stayed away from it, leaving it alone. But Scotty, what are your thoughts?
You didn't like Sam Howell, what he did last week? I mean, he looked pretty good.
Oh, no, Fuzzy. Oh, no. Don't talk to Sir Loudly about
the city of brotherly love. Home of the Philadelphia Eagles. We just got through the Eagles game. Hopefully you were here as we talked about that one. Or maybe, hopefully not, because but
welcome in.
With the spread, obviously. This one, I don't know, Chris. You have a Commanders team that's 2-0 again, a team that I thought Sam Howell looked pretty damn good last week. Made some legit throws, a couple of his touchdowns, the one to Logan Thomas and the one to Terry McLaurin were both great throws, high level elite throws in my opinion. Better throws than I've ever seen out of Kenny Pickett.
Ooh.
I don't know why I threw that in there. I just want...
Spicy.
Obviously, Buffalo's been a little Jekyll and Hyde. The problem with Buffalo is they're obviously incredibly talented, but what Buffalo team are you gonna get? Are you gonna get the Josh Allen that makes dumb decisions and makes bad turnovers, which unfortunately is more often than not. I mean, obviously his talent is through the roof. But I don't know if one game against the Raiders has proven to me that he can stay away from those dumb. Even in that Raiders game, he's trying to hurdle defenders at the 3-yard line for no reason at all, dude. They need you healthy. Stop. I know you're a big boy, and he's he's really never got hurt in his career, but don't
his
do
rookie year where he couldn't. His rookie year where he couldn't stop getting hurt.
Well, in his rookie year, he every time he dropped back to pass, it was more likely that he was going to run.
Yeah.
He did not throw the ball a lot. He ran the ball a lot his rookie year. So
Yeah.
I don't have a bet on this one. I don't have a great feel. I could see Buffalo winning by 3 touchdowns, and I could see them losing outright. It's that wild of a turn for me where Buffalo's just too hard for me to project. And so from a betting standpoint, I'm not going to bet on them or against them at this point.
You know what's crazy is you're only getting 2-1 odds on Washington to win this game outright. It's a weird number. For a Buffalo team that's as good as they are, plus 220 for Washington. I feel like I don't know. I feel like you're getting some decent value there to just bet this outright. I wouldn't advise that by any means because I just don't have a good feel on this game. But at the same time, it's like that's a manageable number. I mean, I don't know. Can we stop calling them the Commanders when they couldn't command a child to stop acting like a brat? I don't know.
I told you I'm gonna call them football team from now on.
Also, thing with this game, you have Brian Robinson who was tearing up the Broncos defense as well. They don't exactly have the strongest run defense, so the Commanders could also just utilize the ground game, eat clock, keep the game close that way.
Yeah, Brian Robinson to me is pretty mid, but did have a good game last week against Denver. Could do that. He could. He's not anything special to me. He's kind of a jag to me, just another guy. But it's certainly possible. Listen, Commanders are 2-0, haven't lost. Buffalo has. So listen, I'll be cheering for Washington as a Chiefs fan in this one. Not gonna lie. Let's go, football team.
Yeah. By the way, we have in Buffalo, we call this the Josh Allen experience. Yeah,
and it's a wild one, just like the fans out there.
Welcome in. Welcome in.
It's like, do you get Patrick Mahomes or do you get Rex Grossman?
True. Yeah. Good to have you, Electro. Yeah. Let's see. I'm in Delaware. We know the Eagles. South is the football team. Washington. Yeah, whatever you want to call them. Let's go.
Speaking of Washington, looks like they'll be moving back to DC. Going back to RFK.
I don't know what's going on with them. The
They're
name change, the
RFK?
move,
Of course, they'll probably build a new stadium, but...
Well, they basically had a new stadium deal already done, and then it fell through because people hated Daniel Snyder. So now that he's out of the way, they're definitely going to...
I think the proposal already went through some form of like DC government, not U.S. government, but just like the DC part.
Yeah, gotta love the government.
Next up, we have the Bears at the Chiefs. Chiefs
marquee matchup
in Arrowhead, hosting Justin Fields and company. Now, this game minus 12.5. That means this Chiefs team should win this game by 13 points or more if you think the Chiefs will win this spread. Also, the total is 47.5, which for a 12.5 point spread is kind of a semi-low number in the grand scheme of things. However, I don't think the Bears are going to score a lot in this game. The Bears, there's questions. I think we have one Chicago fan, I think, out there. There's questions whether or not Justin Fields is even a quarterback that's going to be any good in this league. And Scotty, you mentioned it on the last stream about whether or not the Broncos made a mistake in taking Patrick Surtain over Justin Fields. And I think across the board, from what I've been hearing this last week, Justin Fields is not a competent quarterback in the NFL based off of what we've seen so far. We thought this was going to be the step up this year. We saw a lot to be we saw some flashes at the end of last season with being able to use his legs to move around, they haven't drawn up a lot of plays for him on the ground with using his legs. Maybe they need to because that's what got them a lot of success last season. But it's starting to say that he's not able to make the decisions that are going to be successful enough to win games in the NFL as a quarterback. And across, a lot of outlets, whether it's us or whether it's the big boys, ESPN and Fox, are saying he ain't it. He's not that guy. And
you're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
You're going against the Chiefs buzzsaw here, minus 12.5.
Chris, he basically in a press conference today told us he's not that guy. He was like, I'm getting coached too much and I'm thinking too much. I just need to go off instinct. So you can't process information and be coached. Got it. That's going to bode well. Go off instinct, buddy. if only that was the only storyline that we could have got from. Yeah, I don't know if Rec gave him the information for his press conference, but he went to the tried and true Rec route of blaming his coaches for coaching him.
Justin Fields did say afterwards that that wasn't directed at the coaches; it was directed at himself.
Like
For,
how?
I don't know how.
Comments.
That doesn't even make sense. And then Chris, on top of all that, I don't know if you heard, Chris, but there's been some other weird things going on in Chicago
Yeah.
today.
They
defensive
don't have a defensive
coordinator.
coordinator.
Their defensive coordinator resigned today, Alan Williams.
There's some weird
And
stories.
if you go to the dark web, there's some interesting speculation. Nothing confirmed. We're not going to dive into that. Let's let it play out and figure out if something does become definitive, then we can talk about it. But
There's just way too much confusion.
yeah,
All we know
I
is
know
he's out.
he's out for good. And after 2 weeks, that's pretty rare in the league. And it's not performance related on the field. It's not like he was forced out for how the defense was playing. So you have that on top of Justin Fields questioning himself, on top of just a team that's been awful through 2 weeks. Now you come into Kansas City. Listen, Kansas City hasn't started clicking on offense yet, but it's only a matter of time. Maybe this is a game to get right on that sense. But defensively, the Chiefs have been great through 2 weeks and should be able to dominate. And, Justin Fields in this offense. I don't have a bet on this game. I don't
What
have
do you
a bet
think
on
could
this
be
one.
reasonable?
Oh, they'll put up more than 20. The Chiefs will score more than 20.
I mean,
Don't worry.
in this game, I think the line should be closer to like 13 or 14. I think that Chiefs should cover this line just based off of the fact that they're just a better team at home. Their defense is playing lights out right now against a team that can't move the ball very well, and a guy that in Justin Fields that just doesn't have the confidence. One, the coaches to put a particular game plan in place that's going to be successful, and just the Bears are just dysfunctional. That's just the top to bottom. They got distractions. They got things going on. There's so much to not like about this Bears team that if I had a lean, I didn't pick this game. If I had a lean, I would take KC minus 12.5 and feel fairly comfortable with it.
I almost never bet the favorite at this big of a number. And then usually if it's this big of a number, I can't bet the other side either. So I usually just stay away from it.
Yeah.
And there's
Actually had this as a bet. Actually had this as a best bet with Chiefs minus 13.
And honestly, I think you're not in a terrible spot. I have it probably closer to 14. So, but it's a big number. I will say I don't want to sweat out a big number. So that's
and
just
if
me.
I know anything about my Chiefs at times, they aren't great at like keeping the foot on the pedal against bad teams all the time. So I could see a backdoor. They're up, even if they're up like 20 late, all of a sudden, or a touchdown late by the Bears cuts into it. So I don't know. We'll see.
Keep close has
Kansas
his
City
line as
should-
minus 56.
Minus 56 seems aggressive. I'll take Chicago.
I'll take Chicago on that one. I hope Fantasy pushes Mahomes and company, runs the score to 28-0, and they sit for the rest of the second half. You might STG that could be a thing.
They have a decent amount of Chiefs already have a decent amount of offensive players that didn't practice today, with the great Kadarius Toney. Pacheco didn't practice today with the hamstring. Richie James might be out for an extended time. Not that that's a huge loss, but like still another guy. So there's a few pieces that weren't practicing on the offensive side, and two of our linebackers as well. So we'll see what happens. But this is a good week to kind of get right. Although then the Chiefs have Sunday night next week against the potent Jets offense. So tough 2 weeks for the Chiefs defense going against the Bears and Jets offenses in back-to-back weeks. It's a gauntlet, Chris.
It's a gauntlet. I don't know how you're going to make it through.
Yeah.
But real question is, Gain will come back this week, and what's up with McKinnon? Should we trust him?
McKinnon? McKinnon was a product last year of getting touchdowns through the air. If Clyde Edwards he's going to steal a couple of those. Without a touchdown, McKinnon's not startable. So you're hoping he gets a score. Right now, the Chiefs haven't scored a ton on offense. So right now, I would not play McKinnon. I don't even know if he's rosterable. Depending on what your roster looks like, you can maybe stash him on your bench. But like, if you dropped him, I wouldn't blame you.
I mean, going into the season, there was only 2 rosterable players that we felt, well, maybe 3, that we thought were going to be. Kadarius Toney was kind of a crapshoot because, again, we didn't know how his health was going to be. And then Kelsey and Mahomes are the only 2 consistent, massive point scorers at their given positions that were worth taking. Everyone else, they spread the ball around too much. So, even with those running back, wide receivers, it's hard to trust anybody from a week-to-week basis. Like, depending on matchups and depending on what happens, it's hard to trust any given running back or receiver. So, it's hard.
Nicholas, this feels like a game the Chiefs should win, but will turn into a loss like the Colts last year. If they would have won week 1 and they were 2-0, the fact they're 1-1, I don't think they're going to overlook this one as much.
Yeah. Okay, on to the Broncos and the Dolphins. Broncos.
I'm gonna do a code yellow real quick as you start off on this one, Chris.
Yes, sir. Code yellow spam. Code yellow in the chat for Scotty as he's going to take care of business. But Broncos here, Dolphins. The line is at 6. Is it still at 6? I thought it was at 6.5 at one point. It's dropped down to still 6.5, at least on FanDuel. Over under set at 48.5 currently. And all right. I'm not picking a side on this game. Now, I do have a best bet. It's just not on either the Broncos or the Dolphins. Now, initially when I saw this line, I was thinking to myself as a Broncos fan, how are the Denver Broncos going to keep up with this Dolphins offense, right? Like, there's one obvious offense that's better than the other at this point. One of these things is not like the other. It's the Dolphins being better than the Broncos. Now, that being said, I do think that the Broncos defense has taken a step back. The Dolphins have, under Vic Fangio, they've been, fine. And do I think Vic Fangio is going to pull out some extra stops against the Broncos, his former team, this week? Potentially. But the Broncos are traveling for an early game in Miami, which Miami early in the season with that weather, they put the opposing team in the sun, and it's just not a great situation for the Denver Broncos. Like, it's hot. Typically teams bring in their own shade. Like, they bring in their own like overhangs and different things so they can canopies. Canopies and different things so they can hide. But Electro, that's what I'm kind of curious about in this one. I think he did okay against Tyreek in his rookie season, but it wasn't like spectacular, but it wasn't terrible. It was kind of just like meh. I have to go back and look at the stats of that game, but overall, that's what's interesting about this game and why I have the under 48.5. I got it at 48.5. So I ended up taking the under in this one for a couple different reasons. One, the Broncos offense we know can stall out and has stalled out at times. Now, they've actually scored a pretty decent amount this season compared to last season. So they've been putting up points at a
by this season, you mean last week?
Well, they've been actually a decent team putting up points recently.
Here's a stat that everyone and I was going to talk about, but they average more points per drive than anybody in the league through 2 weeks.
Which is, I heard
and
that
they're
stat.
0-2 at home against Washington and
which is, it's like, what is this?
Make it make sense.
I don't understand how that works, but the Broncos have established that they can score even without Jerry Jeudy, even without Patrick, even with some of the injuries to tight end. Like, we've had some issues, so I get that. But with this being said, I think traveling to the East Coast for a morning game in the heat against Miami, against Vic Fangio, against his former team, who might drop some tricky plays and might want to throw a little extra into this game. I think the Broncos may not score as many points this week as they typically have in the last couple weeks. And then also, I just think that on the other side, Jalen Waddle's banged up, and we have Pat Surtain against the speedy Tyreek Hill, which that's going to be a fun matchup to watch all game, because Patrick Surtain has been very good against top corners or top wide receivers, I should say, in the NFL. I mean, he shut down some pretty good names in week 1 and week 2. However, Tyreek Hill is a different beast. He's a top receiver in the NFL. So I don't expect Tyreek to be held down quite as much as some of the other receivers that Pat Surtain has gone up against. He's a very different style of receiver. And I think Pat Surtain's going to have trouble keeping up with Tyreek here in this one a little bit. However, I do think he'll slow Tyreek down a little bit as well. So I think this is going to be a grindy running game. They're going to rely, Miami is, on just kind of wearing the Broncos down in some of the running game and maybe stretching the field on occasion. But I don't see this game getting above 45. I think this one, I got the under 48.5 when I got this line. I think it's currently still at 100, or it's at, not 100, 48.5. So everybody I know and everybody I've seen online is on the over in this game, which makes me feel so much better about this under. Everybody loves the over. And so there's something about this game. I feel like it's a trap game somehow, some way, but I do feel good. It's one of my best bets of the week. I have under 48.5.
Yeah, and if it hits the under, you probably lean towards liking Denver in the +6 on an under here.
I do like, actually, that was one of my leans that I didn't take because I don't trust it. But the lean is Denver. I think this game should be around 5.5.
I mean, Chris, historically, betting 0-2 teams against the spread against 2-0 teams has been very profitable throughout the years. Hits at close to almost 65%.
Yep.
Hit rate on those games, and that's a situation we have here. So if I were to bet this game, based off of that alone, I would take Denver in the points. Saying that, like, I don't know. Chris, what did I said on Sunday night about the Broncos? I'm like, I know exactly how this is going to play out this week. Tomorrow on sports radio, the sky is falling. The Broncos suck. They're the worst team ever. And by Tuesday, they'll start being like, but we did this well.
You're telling me there's a chance.
This. So that's exactly what happened, Chris. Monday, the sky was falling. Everyone was furious, pissed. How do we lose this game? And by Tuesday, it was like, but hey, our offense leads in points per drive. And all these other stats. And I'm just like, this is exactly what Denver radio does with the Broncos. They're like, we're so out, and by the next day,
we're so in.
Get pulled back in. You know,
Right when you think you're out, they pull you back in.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I'm not saying, like, listen, I think the Dolphins are getting a little overhyped, and this is I picked them to be the number 2 seed in the AFC. I think after 2 wins. Obviously, the Chargers win, but that was back and forth, and the Chargers team, that's kind of what they do. They just lose close games. And then, I mean, that game against New England was very close to going to overtime. If that offensive lineman gets another foot or so, gets that first down, who knows what happens to that game. And the offense wasn't quite as prolific. I think, Chris, listen, I love Pat Surtain. I do. I don't think there's a corner in the world where I would be comfortable isolating a corner against Tyreek Hill.
No.
With his speed. So I think if I'm Denver, I'm giving help over the top. Let Surtain play aggressive, at the line with him. Be aggressive with him, knowing like, hey, over the top, I'm going to have help if he gets past me. So I don't know. I think Justin Simmons didn't practice today. I didn't see where that was at and exactly what's going on there. But that's a big loss in the secondary if true. Broncos defense has not played well. Just ask Rex Ryan, who absolutely called them out, and the defensive coordinator. As it happened, Rex Ryan interviewed to be the defensive coordinator of the Broncos, didn't get it. Now he's hating on your boy. Why am I drawing a blank on the Broncos defensive coordinator? Their former coach.
Oh, yeah. Gosh.
Oh my gosh. This is embarrassing.
I'm not gonna
I
lie.
can picture him.
Well, he has the most unmemorable name, honestly, and it's true. I Vance Joseph.
It's Vance Joseph. Yeah. So anyway, obviously that hasn't worked.
He must
for 2
be
weeks.
so good that we just can't remember his name. That's how good he is.
Vance, I'm
having the time of my life. Yeah.
I wish that interviewer could have got a second chance.
I should
Never
get,
has.
I
He
did-
never.
Should I make
I don't
that a
know if
sound
he's still
drop?
alive. I don't know if he's alive.
Getting to the
I
chat
say
real
that
quick.
line all the time, and people are like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "You don't remember that?
It
That
was so
epic."
good. I love my Broncos, but I was taking the Dolphins. My 3.5-year-old granddaughter said, "No, Emma, the Broncos, and take the Broncos," and proceed to pick all the pick 'em based on helmets. Let's see what happens. Diacola, I pray for your pick 'em this week. Chris is hoping Denver gets a miracle win. I'm not expecting a win in this game. I'm
Looking for a miracle.
I'm expecting they're going to keep it close, but SDG's like they want to hear me singing Kanto again, and I posted that video on our YouTube. But yeah, that was last week. This is different. This is different this week. I'll be singing a new tune, and it probably won't be a favorable tune at the end of this week.
And Chris, you made a good point that I hadn't really thought of actually. That historically, I feel like Denver's played really poorly when they go to Miami.
It's just
Even when they're favored and the better team, they just don't play well out there. Whether it's the heat, whatever it may be, the long trip out there, I don't know. But even when
that
they're like
morning game,
the favored team, they don't. Yeah, the early game, they don't play well. So it's hard. It's hard. I don't have a strong inclination in this one. Obviously, Miami's the better team, but at 6 points. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I think it might be a competitive game. Who knows?
Skylander, what's going on, Sky? How we doing? Welcome in. Who's your team and where you're
All
from?
right.
Like to get to know you a little bit, guys. We are one follower away from 900. Oh wait, was that 900? No, we are 900. Skylar,
Alright.
you are
did
our 900th follower.
What does Skylander win? Chris?
Let's go. Oh my
High
goodness.
five.
My man.
Well, now you have to tell us who your team is and where you're from, because now you're making history. 900 followers on Twitch. Thank you so much, Skylander. Appreciate you for the follow. B-Dub, welcome in. C Vans, I'm having the time of my life. That's right.
My man.
Wouldn't touch this game with a 10-foot pole, says Gibby. We're losing by a minimum 30 points. Let's keep close. I don't know. I'll take 30. I'll take plus 30 on that one if you want. Nightlife will get you. Ty, there are distractions in Miami. That's for sure. Denver players spending too much time on South Beach.
Bringing the heat.
The bikinis
Y'all
are a little
hear that?
skimpier
Y'all
on
hear
South
that?
Beach. Let's just put that out there. New York loves the Bills. Ooh, we have another Bills. We have a couple Bills fans now, Skylander. So appreciate you popping in. Thank you for being a part of the stream. If you're just joining us, Discord is where you want to be. Hanging out with us when we're offline. We're talking about the games, and then we're live every Wednesday and Sunday. My name is Chris. This is Scott. We are your hosts for the Action Lab. If you guys are brand new, like Skylander and some of the other folks, Fuzzy and Loudly, and all of you guys, thank you for being here and being a part of it. All right, next up, Chargers and Vikings. Okay, this is a fascinating.
Hammer the over.
This is a fascinating game. I mean, is this one of your best bets of the week, Rec? Over?
Unfortunately, they don't have over-unders on the Super Contest, or else I would have hammered it.
Well, this one is an interesting one because this spread has been a pick'em Then it went one way, like a half a point. Now it's currently settled in. Where are we at now on? Like it's changing by the minute. I feel like.
I do have the best bet on this with the Chargers at a pick'em. Just Chargers with no spread.
And I lean actually the other side if I had to. I didn't pick this as one of my best bets of the week, but the current spread on this one, let me take a look. We are looking at Minnesota Vikings plus 1.5. And I kind of like the plus points in this one.
It's moved all the way to plus 1.5.
Plus 1.5. Now, this is a game, guys. Now, for all you bettors out there, this is a great game, in my opinion, to live bet. Now, we don't talk a lot about live betting in this one, but what you can do is when this game kicks off and you maybe get a touchdown for the Chargers right off the bat, and it's like 7-0 or something, and that line shifts, just hammer the other side, knowing that overall this line should be close to like a pick'em or a 1-point game, 2-point game max. And you'll see that swing. So then that way you can take the Vikings getting points. And like, this is a very good live betting option.
I would wait till a team's down 2 touchdowns, Chris.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I promise you that other team will come back and it'll be, and it doesn't even matter which team it is. Whatever team gets up will give it away and vice versa. Like these teams are almost the same. Now, last year, obviously, Minnesota won a ton of close matchups. They lost 2 to start this year. I mean, the wild thing is that we're going to have an 0-3 team after this, Chris. These are 2 desperate squads, both needing a win. You don't want to go to 0-3.
Fighting for their seasons.
Already. I mean, 0-3 is not a death nail, but it's
pretty close.
It's close. So, fascinating. Highest point total of the week at 54 and a half, whatever it may be. Chris, we're going to see a lot of players from this matchup in our fantasy rankings later on. That we'll talk about. I think this game would be a ton of fun to watch, I think. Listen, Kirk Cousins, I think, is second in the league in passing yards through 2 weeks, even though they've lost both games. I think he's only behind Tua for passing yards. Justin Herbert, 300 yards, couple touchdowns last week, and a loss, of course. No turnovers, none of that, but it does not matter. The Chris.
Charger. It's true.
The Charger. I want to watch this game, but I don't want to bet this game. I don't.
No.
Again, what I will do, if the team gets up like 14-0, I will bet money line on the other team. Like a little sprinkle on it, Chris. A little sprinkle.
And that's
thinking like,
yeah,
like let's go, because that team's gonna come back. I promise you that.
That's where the live betting comes into play. And again, we never really talk about live betting on this channel very often. We just take over-unders or point spreads, or we know about money lines, just picking a team to win. But like any type of close game like this, you just monitor it, and you just like you said, Scotty, put up, a team goes up by like 10. You're gonna look at that live betting line for the other team, and you're gonna be like, I'll hammer the other side, getting plus points, knowing it's going to come down to a field goal, and you're just golden at that point. It's like free money, and it's like, it's just a way to look at this from a different perspective. If you're new to it, it's maybe a little intimidating to do a lot of live betting, but this game is going to be fascinating. And is it weird that I want the Chargers to charger and just go down 0-3? Oh, I want that.
Why would that
so
be weird?
I want that so much.
As a Broncos fan and as a Chiefs fan, I want that too.
Oh, I want this. I want them to melt down and just dig themselves as deep of a hole in the beginning of the season as possible. And like Kirk Cousins, we've talked about, we love Kirk Cousins from the special that he did on the Netflix special, and we love Jay Jettis, right? Like he's electric, and Addison electric. I think I love watching him play too. We had a trade today, obviously, with the Minnesota Vikings making a move. We have some new blood in the running back room for the Minnesota Vikings, Scotty.
Yeah, Cam Akers. Listen, there's a reason that LA was ready to move on. I don't think it moves the needle. I don't think the Vikings can't run the ball and therefore don't run the ball. And it's hard to argue. I listen, that probably leads to some of the turnover issues they've had through 2 weeks, but also like every time they run the ball, they're just terrible. They're bad at it. And some of their turnovers have been Madison fumbling. So Cam Akers probably won't play this week, I would imagine. But moving forward, we'll get some snaps and some looks. I just don't think Cam Akers moves the needle for me. But Chris, these teams are fascinating. The Vikings won a game last year when the largest comeback in NFL history. What was it? They were down to the Colts like 33-0, you said? And the Chargers, let's not forget, blew a monumental halftime lead against the Jags in the playoffs last year.
Which was
But
incredible.
Then I could see the exact opposite happening in this one. I could see the Vikings going up like 21-0 in this one and the Chargers coming back. Like anything is possible in this game. What's not likely is a defensive battle, Chris. There's going to be points in this game. They're going to score. Both defenses have not played well through 2 weeks.
Anything's possible.
Both offenses should get on the board. Quite
Yeah. This will probably be one of my favorite games to watch this weekend. And I'm waiting for it. We have a lot of bets in the chat too. Jay Jettis, anytime touchdown. I don't know if he got one yet.
He fumbled one away.
Yeah.
Does he have one? He didn't get one last week against the Eagles.
So the week
I know he leads
20 points, so
he leads does he lead or does Tyreek lead in yards for wide receiver? I think Jettas does.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Let's see here real quick.
Stats, Herbert demands a
season
trade after
leaders.
this game. Staley gets fired. Let's see. We have more. Pick the Chargers.
It's Jettas and it's by a lot.
Yeah.
got
So
309.
real quick, Chris.
Puka.
Guess who's second in receiving yards?
I gave it away.
Oh.
My bad.
I don't know if you heard.
I didn't hear actually. Second in
Guess
receiving
who's
yards.
second? Yeah, this year.
It's not Tyreek. Tyreek's third.
Tyreek's third in receiving yards this year.
Yep.
That's shocking.
He is 11 yards behind second place.
Is it one of my boys?
It's not Marvin Mims. It's not one of the Broncos.
Oh, okay.
One of your boys. What?
I don't know. Marvin Mims like blew up last week. All of a sudden had a. No, is it Pua Nakua?
Puka Nakua.
Winnie the Pooh.
There's a K in there.
Winnie the Puka. Winnie the Puka Nakua.
It's Puka Nakua. He is second place.
Yeah. Winnie the Puka Nakua. Yeah. He's.
Justin Jefferson.
I'm telling you, guys. By the way,
not have a touchdown.
from a fantasy perspective, I feel like if you need some more depth on your fantasy league, sell high on Puka Nakua. Just maybe throwing that out there.
I think a lot of people are already jumping on him.
No, I mean like no.
Why give up now?
Sell high on him. Like if you have him, sell high. Like while the stock is highest, because I don't know if he can. Like is it reasonable for him to maintain what he's been doing? Like I don't know. I would bet no.
But what are you going to be able to sell for? Because the person on the other end is probably questioning that too. So I don't know if you're going to get the value.
I don't know.
I'd ride it out for a little bit, see what happens.
Yeah, maybe.
Dude's had 35 targets through 2 games. That's
insane.
Bruh.
That's 10 more than Justin Jefferson.
That's crazy.
I mean, that's 10 more than second place for targets through 2 weeks. That's wild.
I always live bet the Nuggets after they give up a bunch of points in the third. Hey, that's profitable too. No, my best bet, Scotty, big dogs coming into Denver against the Nuggets. Always take the other team. Always. You will win so much money. Just saying. I'm going to let you get started on the Rams Bengals while I take my first code yellow.
Speaking of Pua Nakua, what a name, by the way. There he is. He gets in the graphic here for us. Chris, let me look at where this line is actually, because this one continues to move in a direction maybe not a lot of people think, but screams to me that the guy pictured here in this graphic is not going to be playing in this game. Listen, let me just look at it real quick. Actually, Bengals have moved to -3, so it's gone that other direction. Obviously, even at -3, this seems like a weird line, right? I mean, who would have thought prior to the season that Cincy would be only 3-point favorites at home against the Rams in week 3? You have a Bengals team 0-2 to start, struggling. You have a quarterback that was out all preseason with a calf injury. Seemed to at least have an issue with that towards the end of this past game against Baltimore. This line still at 3 says to me that like there's not a lot of confidence that Joe Burrow is going to play in this game. Honestly, it's a Monday nighter, so he gets an extra day. But like, what does that mean when he had weeks off? He re-aggravates it last week. Do you want to be dealing with this all the season? But then at the same time, you're 0-2, so like this is not a good position for Cincy to be in. Having to decide whether to jeopardize his health moving forward and play him, or jeopardizing going to 0-3 potentially if you don't play him. In a hole you never expected to be in. It's tough. The Rams have played far better. Speaking of quarterbacks that have outperformed what I thought they would do, especially without Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, I think, might be 3rd in the NFL through 2 weeks in passing yards. He's right towards the top. This offense has played pretty well. They hung in there against the Niners for a long time last week. Obviously, Niners, top 3 team and probably the best roster in the NFL. Chris, I was mentioning I don't have a lot of confidence that Joe Burrow is going to play in this game.
I mean, why would you risk like we've talked about this like the
risk is that you go to 0-3 though, Chris.
And 0-3 is rough, and I get that. But at the same time, it's like,
and like, is another week going to help? Because he took, how many weeks did he take off in the preseason? After the initial
every week.
Yeah, well, so he didn't practice for what, 3-4 weeks, and he still has already re-aggravated it. So even if he sits out this week, and then they lose, you bring him back next week, and then he could still easily re-aggravate it. Like, it's a shitty situation for Cincinnati. Even with Burrow, they haven't been clicking, whether that's due to this calf or whether it's due to timing or whatever it may be. They haven't looked right offensively. The defense hasn't been able to hold up. That's obviously they got blown out week 1, lost a closer one, but really they were awful offensively for almost 3/4 of that game against Baltimore last week before trying to stage a comeback, but never even getting the ball with a chance at the end. I'm going to stay away from this game because we don't know the status of Burrow, so I'm not going to take a side. This isn't one of my bets of the week, but I think if Burrow doesn't play, did we say that Trevor Siemian, is that?
Although this week it came out that someone else was the number 2.
Currently, it's Jake Browning, I think. Isn't it Jake Browning?
Yeah, I think it's Browning. Jake Browning, who does not have an NFL completion.
Tomato.
I'd rather Siemian.
If Jake Browning starts this game, I think the line moves to the Rams' favor by like a point or so.
Well, even if Joe Burrow starts this game and then has to leave at least at some point because of a sack or some sort of tweak to his injury, that changes this game quite a bit to where it's like, all right, well, at this point, speculatively, we probably, from a betting standpoint, if you're trying to look at this game just to look at the Vegas odds of it, getting ahead of being on the other side with the Rams, because I just don't know how I feel about the confidence of what I'm seeing in the Bengals, what I think they could potentially do against a Rams team that surprised a lot of people in the first couple weeks. Like, no one expected Tutu Atwell and Pikachu Nakua to show up and Matt Stafford to look as sharp as he's looked in the first couple of weeks when he's throwing the ball. Like, there's a lot of things that are just strange with this Los Angeles Rams team. Cincinnati Bengals just look awful to start. But again, the Bengals always start out slow, right? So if they lose this one, that's a different feel. I feel like there's my panic meter for the Bengals right now on a scale of 1 to 10 is probably like I don't know, maybe it's a 5.5. At this point, it's a little bit over like where I probably think. If they lose this game, it vaults to probably like a 7.5. Because they're in rough shape. They have to dig themselves out of a hole. They're not in the easiest division to climb out of, and I think it's going to be tough. So, this is a weird game. This is a weird game.
It is, and listen, the Rams have played well thus far. So,
Speak for yourself. For years, I've been a huge fan of that Pua and Dakota guy.
Pika
leave it to
Nakata.
Cuban.
That-
What was your favorite college game that he played in? What was your favorite, Cuban? Who were they playing against? Actually, what team was he on?
I mean, and the favorite has to be that game against Angelo State.
Let's see. Hold on. I'm looking up his butt. So he has a couple alma maters based off of where he played. He played for a couple teams, right?
I know where he ended. I don't know outside of that, but
Where did he end up?
He started with Washington and then ended up with BYU.
I knew he was at BYU.
So he's a Mormon.
Well, he started with Washington. But
Yeah, well,
he went to Utah.
I don't think,
Yeah,
think
for
it's
high school.
allowed to be Mormon and go. He was in Utah. He's probably a Mormon, which is fine. That doesn't matter as far as on the field. Puka Nakua.
Elon Musk also plays QB for the LA Rams. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Chris,
I don't know.
really interestingly, my guy who does like numbers on every team every week, that a better in Vegas, has, without Joe Burrow, Cincinnati 4 points worse than an average team, which is 28th.
Ooh,
Ranked 28th in the league.
Bruh.
damn.
Where the Rams, he has it at 1.5 points worse than an average team, which is 20th. So on a neutral site without Joe Burrow, this guy would have the Rams as a 2.5 point favorite.
That's crazy.
Just saying.
Yeah. And
So
with a healthy Joe Burrow, I feel like they would have obviously they have a better chance than this one, but the line that I have, Scotty, we both have our sources. You have your guy, I have mine, and we do pretty well following our strategic people. The line that I have on this game currently, early on in the week, based off of some of the projections, is Cincinnati Bengals minus 3.7 on the simulations, which is like, they should win this game if Joe Burrow plays to what his capacity should be. But that's just that we don't know how long he's going to end up staying in this game. So that's what's scary about it.
The look ahead before this week was closer to like 7 or 6. So this line's already leaned in a position of them not knowing Joe Burrow. It's kind of a toss up right now. We'll see if Joe Burrow plays or not, but this is a big game for the Bengals. Another team.
As
a Chiefs fan, the Bengals and Chargers starting out 0-3. No disrespect to those teams, but I wouldn't lose sleep over it, Chris.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't really believe a lot in must-win games by week 3. This is a must-win game for the Bengals. It's the most must-win game I feel I've ever felt for this Bengals team is this week, and I just don't know if they can get